What's up, everybody, and welcome to Enjoying the Review. I'm your host, Incomparable Zach Jones, and today I will be reviewing episode 5 of Agatha All Along, entitled Darkest Hour, Wake Thy Power. All right, so before I get into spoilers, just a couple non-spoilery thoughts is I think, even though I like this episode okay, I think it's probably my least favorite episode yet. Simply because, number one, I think there's a lot of kind of tropey things that are just kind of stolen from other horror movies and, not very creative. They're just homages to things other properties we've seen. And then here's the other thing is I know Agatha is supposed to be kind of a morally gray character who, sometimes we root for, sometimes we can't go along, with her thoughts. But in this episode in particular, her attitude and morality changes on a dime, just back and forth, back and forth. And she just, I don't know, towards the end of this episode, she felt like so inconsistent. I don't know. I don't know what to think of her 1 minute from the next. Um, I feel like her personality was just all over the place in this episode. But still, there's still some fun to be had. I would probably give this episode like a 6 out of 10. It's just okay, I think. But yeah, with that out of the way, guys, let's talk about it. Let's get into spoilers. So this episode kicks off with Lilia having a vision of various animals, including a fox, a crow, and a snake, turning into the Salem Seven. And it looks like they find some sort of jewel in the dirt. I was a little unsure on that point. Now, one thing I was wondering, because let's see, I think it was episode 2, they're traveling around, and everywhere they go, there's some sort of animal looking at them. I think it was like a crow, a rat, and maybe a coyote in that episode. And I was wondering if those were the Salem Seven, or if perhaps a mysterious entity we haven't been introduced to yet. This reveal makes me think that maybe it was the Salem Seven, if their whole gimmick is, animals. But then it's like, why would they have been playing it so coy in that episode? Like, why wouldn't they just gone after Agatha, not let her put the coven together? If they knew where she was, it seems like they would have just attacked her. So, I don't know. If we find out that was indeed, members of the Salem Seven, that in retrospect makes that episode make much less sense. Also, I wasn't sure if there was any significance to these animals. A fox, a crow, a snake. And also, I think those are the only animals we see in this episode, but there are, 7 of these creatures. So Lilia, she senses them. She wakes up out of the nightmare, and she tells the others that when they summoned the spell that brought Rio on the road with them, it left open a door for the bad guys to get in. And I'm like, okay, but do they at this point not know the rules of witchcraft? Did they not know that was a possibility when they did that spell? Um, that's the thing about magic, is you can just kind of write anything, and we have to go, as an audience, just kind of have to go along with it and be like, oh, that's magic, I guess. And that's why one of the reasons I don't really like magic based characters, especially in mixed with comic book characters and superheroes. It just, I don't know, it makes for weird stories. and convenient stories a lot of times, I think. Um, so the other witches are talking, and they reveal that the Salem Seven are comprised of the daughters of Agatha's coven, who she killed many years ago. Now, I haven't seen WandaVision since it came out, and I remember her origin was in there somewhat. And in the recap of this episode, they briefly show it, and it was something like her mother betrayed her in a way, and like the other members of her coven, like, tied up Agatha to a post, shot their magic at him, but she was able to, because they've established apparently you can't use magic against Agatha, because she just like turns it on him, and she cooked the other members of that coven, her mom's coven, I guess. Anyway, their daughters are out for revenge, and they're the Salem Seven apparently. So they get on the road, and they hear, I guess in animal form or whatever, that there's a member of the Salem Seven both behind them and in front of them. So the teen boy, he recommends that they create brooms to fly out of the situation. And they have all this whole, I thought, cheesy dialogue where they're like, oh, brooms are so passe, and they're part of the, holiday, like, industrial complex or something. We don't really use brooms that much. But it was a silly thing. But they have this whole thing where they take these, roots. There's conveniently a very large tree, and they take like, large sticks that are in the roots of the tree. And they have this thing where like they pay her off, and they have to trade the brooms in order for them to work, I guess. So anyway, a member of the Salem Seven like shows up there, and they like narrowly avoid it and like get away. And so they fly up in the air, and they kind of like all like enjoy the flying, and they're like, oh, we really should do this more often. But here's the thing: are you telling me that they like over time forgot that they enjoyed flying, and they bought into the whole, oh, we don't like brooms and flying and all that? I don't know. The whole thing just seemed a little silly to me. So they're flying, but eventually the road magically forces them, back down to the ground, and they crash through one of the Salem Seven, who like explodes into a bunch of bugs, like comprised of a bunch of bugs. And I'm like, these Salem Seven don't seem very smart, because except for in like that episode 2 scene, they don't really attack en masse, like all together. They like, oh no, we'll just attack them one by one so they can easily defeat us. They're not very smart. Anyway, they see the next trial house, so they run in. They did break from the last two in a couple ways, where like they don't see like the moon on the door or whatever. They skip that part. They just get in the house, and this time they're magically dressed like, I guess like they're in the 80s. It seemed like that's what they were going for. It was kind of an 80s look. So Rio says that this is Agatha's trial, because they see a blood moon outside, which means the veil between the living and the dead is at its thinnest. So I guess they did subvert expectations here a little, because you would kind of think that they would save Agatha's trial to be kind of the last one, but no, they're throwing it in here. And I think, I was a little surprised by that, but then they've been trickling this thing with Lilia and her visions throughout all of these, so I guess it would make sense to save Lilia's for a little further down the road, so that whenever they reveal what's going on with her, we can see it trickle through more of these episodes. So I guess it kind of makes sense. So a Ouija board appears, and the trial starts. And the teen boy, he reads. There's a few rules attached to this this Ouija game. Like I don't remember all of them. I remember one is like they can't ask questions about death. I don't think. And he says if they take their hand off the planchette, which I guess is the name for the little Ouija piece you hold on to, that a spirit will be released. But even that, we'll find seems a little dodgy. Um, so they start and they ask the Ouija board who they are communicating with, and it spells out Mrs. Hart. Or did it spell out Miss Shart? Maybe they had it wrong. You never know. So Lilia's hand comes off the planchette, the player piece, and this releases the spirit of Mrs. Hart into Agatha. And but then we find out that Agatha was just acting and wasn't real. But here's the thing, like according to the rules of the game, like a hand comes off, like a spirit is supposed to be released, but seemingly it wasn't really then. So again, they're kind of already violating the rules they just set up, seemingly. So they ask the Ouija board once more, who they are communicating with, and it spells death. They ask the spirit what it wants, and it spells out punish. So they ask it who it wants to punish, and it spells out Agatha. So Agatha's hand now comes off the planchette, and they start to hear a spirit around the room. Lilia starts acting weird again, and I'll be honest. If one of the other characters, I think maybe the teen boy acknowledges like, "Oh, Lilia's on one of her, you know, trips again." I If he didn't say that, I don't know if I would have even noticed. And I think her dialogue here was she said something like, "I didn't like this the first time." So again, I assume in a future episode we'll kind of figure out what's going on with these things that Lilia is saying. Jen says they need to punish Agatha to complete the trial. And I will say, over and over again in this episode, they establish that Jen really has it out for Agatha. So Jen goes to get a rope, and Agatha somehow disappears out of sight from everybody, which was a little silly. Like, we're going to find out here in a second, like, she's possessed or whatever. So presumably that she can move quickly. But you're telling me like everybody in that room that was just like staring at her in the center, like they totally lost track of her. She just disappeared. I don't know. It was a little silly. All of a sudden, the lights go out and they start to hear creepy noises. The teen boy gets a flashlight and he shines it to the ceiling, revealing a possessed Agatha. And this is where I'm talking about like horror tropes. So they totally just make her look like the girl from The Exorcist, and she even like starts crawling around like her and everything. Like so, a little tropey in my opinion. Agatha, being possessed, begins to choke Jen until Lilia turns the light on, and that stops it. So all of a sudden, the ghost of Agatha's mother, Evanora Harkness, appears. And Agatha turns back to normal as we find out that it was her mom who was possessing her. So her mom tells the other witches that they are fools for joining her, as she, basically, is the one who killed all of her mom's coven. They say that to get rid of a ghost, they need to finish their unfinished business. So they ask her, what that is. So I have a question about the whole ghosts and unfinished business thing. Because I remember the first time I ever heard that is in the Casper movie with Christina Ricci. Like, that was the whole thing. Like, Bill Pullman's character was like, said ghosts, if they have unfinished business, basically they have to finish that business before they can cross over to the other side. if any of you are like ghost hunter people, maybe you can tell me, like, was that a was Casper the first like thing of fiction that like established that, or was that something already established somewhere and Casper just used it? Because I feel like then I've heard that same thing in like other like properties that have ghosts, and now we're hearing it here. So again, like just kind of a tropey thing that they borrowed, that we've all heard before. She tells them that they must finish the Witch's Road without Agatha. So her mom wants, Agatha to stay there. Rio comes to Agatha's defense and says her mother cannot have her. So, they are establishing that, Rio must, still have feelings, strong feelings for Agatha. Agatha asks her mother why she still hates her, and her mother says that she was born evil. She says that she should have killed Agatha the moment she left her body. Which doesn't really answer the question of why she still hates Agatha, but fair enough. So Jen, again, not liking Agatha, tries to convince the group to leave without Agatha. Agatha begs the group to take her with them, and then her mother possesses her body once more. So Alice zaps Agatha with her magic because she's like the protection witch. And so that works to knock the possession, like her mother, out, so she's not possessed anymore. But it leaves an opening for Agatha to start draining Alice of her magic. Again, I think this is kind of the weakest storytelling device. Kind of, I guess, not, since they'd established it early, maybe not Deus Ex Machina, but this whole thing of like, oh, witches can't use their magic on Agatha because she can just absorb everybody's magic. To me, it's kind of a weak plot point, but nonetheless, she starts draining Alice of her magic. So the teen boy, I think he either senses that there's still another spirit in the room, or maybe he sees the Ouija board acting up. But he goes back to the Ouija board and he asks who's there, and it spells out Nicholas Scratch, who, as we've determined previously, is the name of Agatha's missing son. Also, code names for the devil. But the teen boy, he when he sees that, he like says or yells out the name Nicholas Scratch, and when Agatha hears that, she stops, taking Alice's magic. However, it ends up being too late because the boy tries to wake Alice up, and she appears to be dead. Like, they do that thing where like she appears to almost be like an old person, like husk, like the life just drained from her. Agatha says that she didn't mean to, and she looks in that moment very sorry. The trial, they beat the trial. The exit opens up, and Agatha walks through the exit. And we see here kind of briefly conjure Alice's magic in her hand. At least it was the same color as the magic Alice was using. So, we get the sense that she now has Alice's magic. So now the boy confronts Agatha, and she says she couldn't control what she did. The boy says that she can, and Agatha was only after Alice's power, which Jen agrees with. The boy says that if being a witch means killing people to serve yourself and attain power, then it's not for him. And so now we just seen Agatha in a very sympathetic light with, her mother hating her, and her like, and then like she seemed aggressive towards Alice, and we got the sense, oh, she's evil, but then she seemed genuinely kind of morose and didn't mean to hurt Alice. But now, like I said earlier, she switches back and forth constantly. So now she gets this evil smile on her face, and she whispers to the boy, "Are you sure?" into his ear, like, that you're not into, you know, uh, this, like that you wouldn't kill for power and all this sort of thing. And then she looks at him and says that he's so much like his mother. Again, so, and then she starts to leave, and she's like, "Come, pet," kind of talking down to him. So it's like, again, another 180 where she's just terrible again here. I'm actually going to go back to what she said about the mother real quick. So, because we're almost done here. The other witches grab Agatha, and then the kid uses his own power. His hand lights up like blue or something, and he makes the ground swallow up Agatha. And then he does the same to the other witches. He uses magic, swallows them up in the ground. And then a crown magically appears on his head, and he looks, I don't know what you would call that, crown, headpiece, but basically the same thing that the character of Wiccan wears in the comic books. So between that and, her saying that he's so much like his mother, I mean, I think this is pretty much confirmation that he is indeed the character of Wiccan, the son of Wanda. Which, is what I was expecting. But a part of me is like, how did Agatha for sure put it together? Like, are they going to answer that? Or do we just assume that, like, when Rio told her in the last episode that the boy wasn't hers, that just led her to believe that Wanda is his mother? So I guess that's a question we have leading into the next episode. But yeah, like I said, I think this was a fine episode, and we got that reveal at the end. But a little tropey with borrowing the things from other horror movies, and again, Agatha's personality just all over the place. And again, I know to an extent that's by design. She's supposed to be, morally gray, someone we don't always agree with. But I think we're supposed to like her more than we don't. And it seemed to me like her personality changed abruptly back and forth in this episode, especially towards the end there. So I don't know, maybe a little inconsistent characterization in my opinion, but still not a bad episode. I give it a 6 out of 10. All right, guys. So what did you guys think? Comment down below. Let me know. Please, as always, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please subscribe in audio form on your podcast catcher of choice. Thumbs up, positive reviews, all that good podcast stuff. If you like, you can follow me over on Twitter/X at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive. But until next time, guys, I hope you're enjoying the review. Bye, guys.